In this video, I'm going to be sharing another fantastic market opportunity in Africa, particularly if you have some money to invest. Amazing, amazing opportunity. And let me just share with you the context of this opportunity. So basically, Africa is facing a staggering challenge, staggering talent challenge. And this is it. By the year 2035, Africa needs to create 2 billion jobs just to keep up with population growth. But based on current trends, the continent is on track to only create a third of that, actually 421 million jobs that will be created. The shortfall is about 800 million job opportunities that need to be created. Meanwhile, millions of African graduates are being churned out every day or every year. Let's put it that way. They are entering into the job market and they are unprepared for the real challenges or the real demands of industries like AI and renewable energy, construction, education, healthcare. They are unprepared for that. And that is where the opportunity comes in. Just going to focus on one subset of the opportunity, not all, just one subset. To me, it's an easy lift by any investor or any diasporan investor that has the bandwidth in terms of the cash outlay and also in terms of the passion to just run with this. All right. So before we jump into this, there's a report that we created called the African Advantage Report. What this report does is that it shows you the cultural intelligence an investor or a business person who wants to enter the African market needs to know before they jump in. Africa is such a diverse market, culturally very diverse, very different. So we created this kind of regional cluster of cultural intelligence report. Basically, what the report shows is that Africa can be grouped into 5 clusters of regions. Each region is comprised of countries within that region, but they are culturally very similar in terms of the way they do business, the way they approach things. Very, very similar. So if there's something that you would want, because many companies come in or investors come into Africa and they come in with good intentions but make very, very silly cultural blunders that cost them their business. And I don't want that to happen to you. So if you want that kind of report, it's free. Use the QR code on the screen, just scan it, and then you'll be given access to that report. Or in the description, there's a link in the description that you can just follow that link and you get access to that report. So without much ado, let's jump right back into our content. So as I said, Africa is facing this staggering challenge, right? And the key points I'm going to highlight are the year 2035. I'm just actually hold on. So as I said, Africa is facing a staggering challenge, right? And this challenge, I'm just going to highlight a few key points. The key points is that by 2035, there's going to be a need to create at least 1.2 billion jobs. Nobody knows where that's going to come from. But based on current trajectory, there's only going to be 421 million jobs that can be created. It's a massive gap, right? So what I'm going to be talking about, this opportunity, basically the key points are this. Yes, Africa needs these jobs. Number 2, AI, science, tech, and renewables are seen as priority sectors that can fill this gap. These are the big sectors. AI is relatively new. Science, tech, and renewables, they will fill this gap. The cool thing is that the youth in Africa is Africa's biggest asset. But they are underutilized or underused. I think the reason why I say that, for most African populations, the youth has the greatest numbers. There are countries where over 60% of the population is less than 18. Whereas in most advanced countries, they are overly leveraged on older people. The larger size of the population has to do with those over 45. Whereas in Africa is the reverse. So Africa is sitting on a very fine demographic dividend or demographic asset, right? So that's it. But the challenge is that this demographic is underutilized. They are undertrained. The schools are not preparing them enough for the future, right? And to fix this, schools need to teach more practical skills in AI, science, mathematics, tech, and engineering. That is what employers currently need. I met a Portuguese national who's lived in Ghana for like 20 years. He runs an engineering company and a slew of other companies, some manufacturing plants. He runs some other things. But he's lived in West Africa for like 25 years and he currently lives in Ghana. Whilst we were talking, he couldn't help himself but open up, to some of the challenges that he sees. And he was giving me a history of West Africa and a history of Ghana, which was quite interesting to listen from the perspective of quote unquote a foreigner who has lived in Africa for a long time. And within 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes of the conversation, this is where the conversation veered into. He says, there's a lot of opportunity in Ghana and many West African countries like Nigeria, Senegal, Cameroon, any place. But the problem is your youth are not skilled. I said, that is interesting. I want to know more. And he said, for instance, if you, and he gave me an example of one instance when he was building his factory and, he had all these people, the building trades who came. He said, you could see that the people who are actually doing the work, they do not really understand why they are doing certain things. They just mundanely, okay, you have to chip this place off, you have to do this, but they don't understand the science behind it. And that's the difference between an artisan in Europe versus an artisan who was trained locally in Africa. Because why? The artisan possibly kind of chaperone their master or a senior artisan who probably may have learned certain things wrongly somewhere. So they will follow them, learn from them for maybe about 3 years. And after that, they can veer off on their own to start their own. So if they pick wrong practices from their master, they are going to repeat it going forward. So God forbid the master or the master's master learned it wrongly. And they can't explain why certain things are done. They just know that, okay, if you hear a sound coming from the air conditioning machine, you have to probably go and change this or do that. That's all. But they don't understand the science behind it. And then he also explained that sometimes they're doing things, the finesse, the final finishing is lacking because that skill set to make the finishing of utmost excellence, that skill set in most cases is lacking. So to him, he sees a lot of unemployed people on the street, unemployed graduates. He was telling me about when he was living in Nigeria, taxi drivers that were in Lagos, particularly at that time, taxi drivers and Okada drivers, that is the tricycle and the motorbikes, commercial motorbikes, commercial tricycles. Most of the gentlemen that were running those businesses on their own were college graduates. Most of them, he was telling me, 80% were college grads. Why? Because there were no jobs. But he told me that most of the time, that is not the kind of degrees they have. It's not what businesses like himself they need. He says, how many accountants can I have? Hire. How many business administrators can I hire? We don't need them. But what we need are skilled artisans. If I get a skilled tiler or a skilled plumber, I would hire them in a heartbeat. They are rare to find on the continent. I said, oh, then the light bulb went. So I just went in, started researching on AfricaInsights.ai, and I started, wow, this man is actually speaking the truth. Basically, that is exactly what it is. So this content is going to be about that gap. How can we address that gap? And I'm speaking in the context of an investor. I see a big opportunity here. And let me just unpack that opportunity by actually moving this slide. So I'm just going to unpack this opportunity real quick. Okay. So this opportunity is very simple. This is my own twist on it, right? I don't want to basically focus on the yes, I will do a complete and comprehensive video on the other ones. Renewables, AI, tech, that tech, AI, they are my domain. I love them. I understand them to a large degree than the average person, to put it mildly. So, but today I want to focus on this massive opportunity. So what is this opportunity? It's technical vocational education and training, right? TVET. And this is how it works. This, I'm looking at it from, and even an investor, I want to pay particular attention because this is a gold mine. I haven't seen it done the way I'm about to describe it. So TVET, what happens is that businesses are telling us that this is what they need. They need artisans, skillful artisans who are quote unquote world class, can work on world class projects. Today, many of the big, large construction projects that go in Africa are done by Chinese, right? Because they are skilled. Yes, they use some local talent, but they supervise them to the T to get them. And that is good because it also ushers in skills transfer. But we can't just rely on that. So this is the opportunity. A public-private partnership in which the investor, that is you, the investor, you finance and build a campus, a modern campus that trains artisans, particularly in the building trade. So you are talking of plumbers, bricklayers, or those who do block works, electricians, carpenters, roofers, air conditioning technicians, tilers, what have you. So basically within the building trade, the core artisanal skills that are needed within the building trade. This is what this school is going to be about. And that school will be equipped with not just classroom, but labs, stations, or workshops where they actually do the thing. Their thing. If it's bricklaying, there should be a workshop for bricklaying. If it's carpentry, there should be workshops for carpentry where they can go in and do the practical stuff. Okay. Now, this is the beauty of it. Government wants the youth to get jobs. So when you build that institution and you're running it, what you are doing is that you are solving a pain point for the government. So with that, you're going to partner with the government to achieve that objective. And how do you do that? So you get government, and I believe most governments in Africa will sign up for this, with the right investor or right partner, they will do it in a heartbeat. So governments or donor programs, they guarantee to purchase seats from your organization. I've done a similar video on this on healthcare training institutions, similar. But this is the twist. So the government guarantees to purchase seats per year. Let's say the government guarantees, let's say you put up a 500 seat artisanal school fitted with world-class equipment, world-class teaching staff, world-class administration staff to run this perfectly well. And it can take 500 seats every year. So you link up with the government guarantees to pick up, say, 400 seats. That is 80%. You can link up with other donor programs, NGOs, development finance institutions, and or even corporate bodies within those countries. They have CSR programs. So companies like MTN, UBA Bank, Dangote Group, those organizations could chime in a little bit to be able to buy seats, guarantee seats for your institution. And this facility depends. You could arrange it with the government to even sweeten the deal for the government. You arrange it that, okay, look, we run this thing, and then after 15 or 20 years, we'll hand that facility back over to the government. Or after 15 or 20 years, we will do a split, joint venture. Government takes 60% of the facility, we will keep the 40%. This is just a gray area that an investor would determine how they would want to go. But the key point for this opportunity is that the facility must be world class. The facility at the end of the program must guarantee jobs for the young people. And it's very easy to guarantee jobs because this is a hot cake area that everybody needs. Every person needs. Look at the headache that most people go through living in Africa when they are dealing with guys who are into the building trades area. It's unimaginable. Shoddy jobs, they are good ones, but it's like finding a needle in a haystack. But if civil society investors, private sector, can come into this, I've not seen private sector. I've seen some technical schools here and there, but they are not to the standard that I'm talking about. I'm talking about world-class standard. Kind of a technical school that you probably may find in Canada. You probably may find in the US or Europe or Australia. Anyway, that standard that you bring here possibly may cost maybe $3 to $4 million to put that kind of facility together, where it trains that highly skilled artisans. Their jobs are going to be guaranteed, right? And when that happens, let's look at the next thing. Let's look at the potential revenue streams for this kind of opportunity. I'm excited about this. I really want somebody to take hold of this and run because governments are ready to work with investors in this area. And also, I know, I don't have all the details, but I know I could do a 2.0 of this content. I know there are credit facilities, for instance, with Africa Development Bank, World Bank, to be able to incentivize investors to go into this area. This is an area you could look into. Talk to your country rep, World Bank country rep about this project and see the incentives they have. Some of them will blow you away. There are also a lot of tax incentives that governments are giving for kind of innovative way of upskilling our youth here. So let's say the government, let's say the per student for, let's say, anywhere between $1,500 to $2,000. Remember, the government doesn't have to put up the $4 or $5 million to build that facility because most African governments don't have enough budget bandwidth because they are busily paying their debt. The debt chokes the living hell out of how much money is available to build infrastructure and to build all these kind of physical assets. They don't really have that kind of money. But the government can easily say, hey, look, I am picking up 400 students and putting a tab of, say, $2,000 per head to train them. Because when these people come into the workforce, the government can recoup that money back very quickly through income tax, through different ways and means. And also, as these people get jobs or they're able to start their own projects, what happens is that the economy gets lifted because they get money now. They can pay their kids' school fees. They can pay medical bills. They can buy food. That helps the economy grow, right? So it's in every African government's interest to have a skillful youthful workforce. So the government commits that money. So if they say they are going to do $2,000 per head, and it's 400 people, you do the math. The government pays that kind of money, and then you get that cohort in. In terms of revenue, the trainees themselves will chime in a little bit. We call them top-up tuition. It could be anywhere between $300 to $500. It could even be up to $200, right? So that they have a skin in the game. If they have a skin in the game, they take it very seriously. And those who really, really, really want to do the program but cannot fund it, there should be some kind of a scholarship scheme, maybe a charitable wing of that kind of institution that takes care of that aspect for those type of needy but brilliant and serious students. That's one way of doing it. So that's two revenue streams I've talked about. The government offtake of seats, government guaranteed offtake of seats, if I would put it that way. Then the top-up tuition. Then the third bucket is actually should have been third and fourth bucket, but let me explain them. So placement fees. So when students complete their course from the campus and they go out or they're about to go out to work, because it's a hot cake program, the school could start liaison with industry, particularly construction industry and facilities management. So most massive buildings, ultra high-end buildings, they have facility management staff in place. The facility management staff always will liaise with skilled artisans to be able to do the repair works on ultra modern, multi-million dollar luxury apartments. They need this camping. It's all the time, right? So they could partner with these people. So as the cohort is about to graduate, maybe 6 months down the road before they even graduate, their jobs are lined up with these organizations already. And each placement they pay, say $3,000 or $2,000, whichever it is, anywhere between $1,500 to $3,000. These organizations pay for placement of world-class trained artisans. That is what they need, right? I'll put that number 3, and I would say number 3B, right? Number 3A was a placement. 3B would be projects. This institution could become basically a subcontractor or a contractor for projects, for construction projects also. This institution by itself can bid for construction jobs and utilize the students to be the hands and the feet to build these projects. So that, think about that I can't quantify, but that could be a big revenue area for such an investment or such an institution. Then finally, there's opportunity for continuous education models for practicing artisans. For instance, there could be a new building material, new tiling or new way of tiling that just burst into the scene. And old tilers would need to rescale to be able to do that. There could be a new type of air conditioner, maybe air conditioning powered by solar energy or something. That these old technicians would need to go reschool on that module so that they'll be able to service those kind of things. There could be different new technology in plumbing or electricals every now and then. So the school becomes a never-ending cycle for artisanal education. Okay, so that brings us to the revenue streams, right? So if you haven't already downloaded the report, let me just reiterate that doing business in Africa and not understanding the cultural nuances and the cultural intelligence of the market that you are entering is a no-no. It has been the graveyard of many investors who wanted to jump into Africa. Africa is riddled with opportunities. And that's what this channel is all about. We are just unpacking and unearthing opportunities for investors, business people, and the diaspora. That's what we do. But you have to understand the cultural context before you make a move. So we have this report that shows you regional cultural cluster in terms of intelligence, cultural intelligence on the ground, right? Before you jump into it. If you're interested in such a report, it will save you a lot of headache so that you understand the cultural nuances on the continent. It's free to download. You can scan the QR code on this page, or you can download that via the link in the description. All right, so let's jump ahead. So in a nutshell, this opportunity creates a win-win scenario for both African nations looking to close that skill gap and businesses, because businesses, they're going to get their return big time, because basically this investment is one of the least risky investments you can think of. Almost revenue is guaranteed. Government wants it. Industry wants it. And when you do it, it will create needed skills and needed jobs. It gives the investor, the feel-good effect that you have created a positive impact on the continent whilst collecting your money and laughing all the way to the bank. There is never a win-win scenario like this. And thank you for watching.